Today on Rambling About Cars, we've got a little bit of everything, including an Audi pickup truck. Maybe, maybe not. It's interesting. You'll want to stick around. We've got some Porsche stuff, some BMW stuff, some more pickup stuff, some concept stuff, some high performance stuff. So let's roll. It's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith and Chris Bruce across the way. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Got a house that might be fixed soon, so maybe not quite as flooded as it used to be. So can't complain.
Sweet. Water in a house, generally a bad thing outside of the hot tub or the indoor swimming pool.
Well, water in a house, good. Water on the floor is bad, and I had a lot of the bad part.
Yeah, that was an unwelcome end of 2022 there. So, but that's good news to hear.
Yep.
That's good news to hear. And for all the concerned ramblers out there, this happened just as you were moving to another place. So
it's literally.
I mean, it sucks, but as far as timing goes, okay, you can live with that. So
that's right. Yep.
Very good. Very good. But, well, it's been kind of a busy week here in the auto world.
Maybe not as busy as last week with the E-Ray and stuff like that. Last week is a bit busier, but there's some very cool stuff this week too.
Well, I think last week, there was some cool stuff last week. When you talk about the first electrified all-wheel drive Corvette, that tends to dominate the news cycle. But an Audi pickup truck, we have to be clear. That's not clickbait. Audi has their Activesphere Concept vehicle that just debuted on Thursday. Mr. Bruce had the opportunity to attend a virtual roundtable, learn all about this thing backwards, forwards, and sideways. And in fact, I just learned a few minutes before we started recording this that this Audi Activesphere Concept has sort of a pickup truck mode. So, Mr. Bruce, please enlighten the ramblers about this very interesting concept from Audi.
Absolutely. So this is the fourth in Audi's Sphere concept. So I'm going to read them through for you. They had the Sky Sphere, debuted in 2021, the Urban Sphere and Grand Sphere debuted in 2022, and this is the last of the line. This is the Active Sphere here in 2023, and it is active in the sense that it has this very interesting kind of pseudo pickup bed. And so if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see it. If not, I will describe it to you. It's essentially, if you remember something like the GMC Envoy XUV, where a portion of the rear hatch would move to the side and then provide like kind of a full pickup bed. It's doing that, except that it's doing that in a vehicle with a much more arch-shaped roof line. So it can kind of look like a coupe until you retract that area, and then you kind of get this more utilitarian look. And it's neat. I got some bad news. Audi is not committing that they're going to build this vehicle or necessarily even a vehicle like this. And that's true with all of their Sphere concepts, that they're kind of they're a vision of what's possible in the future, but not necessarily a vision of what they're doing in the future.
Right. So we could get a little piece of one concept here, maybe a little piece of another one here.
Exactly.
It's a very interesting idea. And I tell you what, in an age where we have pickup trucks and then SUVs, and there were minivans in there and big vans, and then everything is trying to become one in a crossover. One thing we haven't really seen in a crossover is something like this with a pseudo pickup bed, unless you consider things like the Subaru Baja, which was really more like a ute or a truck as opposed to a crossover kind of coupe style thing like this. I mean, this is swoopy. It's got 4 doors. It has it has really a car profile, but it sits up really high off the ground. Do we know the ground clearance on this?
They did not say ground.
Okay.
So we should say that this, like I said, is a concept. They do not plan on making this vehicle. Uh, Maybe portions of the other kind of the sphere vehicles might see production a little bit here, a little bit there, but this is not a vehicle that's going to come to market. It's just kind of showing off what they could do, and we are highlighting the pickup bed first because it's kind of the Audi's making a pickup, like
It's a surprise feature.
it is.
Total.
It's not the only surprise about this vehicle. I'm going to pull up some photos here. The other interesting thing is that this has a so it borders between augmented reality and virtual reality interior. So you can see, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you are seeing a driver with glasses on, and those are not eyeglasses; those are actually VR glasses, and they have a photo of them here. And the idea behind that is you would put those glasses on in order to see things like the instruments, the navigation
Hmm.
system, kind of all the things like that. And you would also be able to manipulate those. So I don't have the video here to show you, so I'm going to try to find. They have a decent photo.
So you find that or find that photo, and I'm gonna go all nerd on everybody and say these are like Tony Stark glasses.
They're like
Where
Ray
you
Bans. They're like
where
Wayfarers.
no, no, come on, Marvel, Tony Stark, you put on the he's got his glasses with, like, all of the different functions built in where you can see everything going on, you can, like, contact satellites and launch things.
Okay,
The
so here we
Tony
go.
Stark glasses.
I know, but so here we go. Here is a passenger who is able to take an HVAC gauge, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning gauge and move it physically while they have these glasses on, and be able to move it into a position that is more convenient for the driver, the passenger, whatever, and then use it there. And so that's kind of the idea behind the interior, that if you look at the interior without these glasses, it's super minimalist because other than a steering wheel, there's nothing there,
Hmm.
because it's not there's nothing that's supposed to be there because you're supposed to wear these glasses and drive the vehicle. And again, like we talked about, this isn't necessarily a vehicle that's intended for production. This
Mhm.
is something Audi would like to do. This is something, in an ideal world, this would be a really cool feature, but I sat in on the media roundtable and they're like, yeah, we know we can't necessarily do this. In fact, apparently, even in the concept, which we don't really get to see here, there are pop-up gauges where, let's say your VR goggles, they run out of battery, or you're someone that VR goggles don't work with, or something like that. Physical gauges can just like pop up, and then like you have those there. They didn't show those off in the images, but the vehicle itself, they considered that, and they're like, yeah, we know it's not going to be perfect for everybody because this technology is still in the very, very early phases, and that's where we are.
But I like it. I like the
Oh, it's
idea
cool as hell.
of
Yeah,
having the very minimalistic cockpit, and then you put on the glasses and you can see the controls that you need to see.
exactly.
It's almost like I get like a spy car vibe from it for some reason,
What it reminds me
and
of
that stuff is always neat,
immediately is Minority Report. Is and I granted, it's funny because that movie is what, 15 years old or something
right?
now, but it's Tom Cruise walking through, and like, he's a detective in that movie, and he's got the kind of, it's almost like an iPad like screen, but it's a huge like wall thing even before an iPad
Mhm.
existed. But even that, it's very similar to this, where you can take a digital thing, manipulate it physically in your hand, put it onto the vehicle, manipulate it from there. It's a really interesting idea, but, and again, Audi understands that this is not something that's going to happen anytime soon.
Mhm.
May and they admit when I was in the roundtable with them, that this is something that they would like to do. Maybe you might get little pieces of this, but VR goggles, augmented reality goggles, they're not there yet. And so they obviously can't offer a vehicle like this yet because the technology isn't there yet.
If you had to pick 2 or 3 features from this concept that you would really like to see reach production at some point, what would they be? I think I have an
Oh,
idea of a couple of them.
I think that the pickup bed that can, you know, you can have like, a regular hatchback, or you can like throw big things in there. I think that would work for so many people and be
It
so
would.
useful. Like, they talk about skis or snowboards kind of in the press release and stuff like that. But even like, oh, I'm going to Best Buy and I got to get a big TV. 98% of the time I don't need that room, but this is that 1 or 2% where I need that just little bit extra room. I can,
Oh, yeah, for
tilt
sure.
up the rear glass and throw that big TV in there. It's stuff like that. It's
Or, I
that.
mean, tilt it up if there's enough room to go get your new refrigerator that
Exactly.
would
Yeah.
that would stick way up, things like that where an open pickup bed really comes in handy. But you don't want to drive a pickup truck, you don't wanna have that functionality all year. That
Right.
seems like a no-brainer to me. What else?
I mean, I think that's the big one. And the other thing is that, this is a two-row vehicle. So Audi presents it as a four-seater. They don't have a bench in the back because they're kind of trying to present a luxury image. But just the fact that this is theoretically a family car, that you
Mhm.
could have if you have a child or two children, like our boss Seth, you could theoretically put kids in the back. Or if
Yep.
you're like me, you could put a dog in the back or things like that. I think those are kind of the major things. This is a four-seat, sometimes use pickup truck that you could have a five-door hatchback 360 days out of the year, and those other, 4 or 5 days where you need to haul something big, you could do that. I think that's what makes this vehicle interesting.
I mean, I definitely think the bed option would be number 1 on my list without a doubt. I really like the augmented reality setup with the glasses. I think that's a pretty neat idea, but it's pretty far out there
It
because
is.
you also have to consider, okay, what if the driver has prescription glasses? Now, are you going to
Yep.
get a set of prescription augmented reality glasses? How much is that going to cost? I mean, it's kind of spacey, but I would like to see some measure of that reach production. Um, and of all of the sphere concepts we've seen from Audi, um, I think I'd like the styling on this one the most.
Yeah, it's not a bad looking vehicle. Here, I'm gonna throw a photo. It's a swoopy five-door hatchback, kind of sort of crossover. It's
Mhm.
definitely not a wagon. You would never call this vehicle a wagon, but it's a vehicle you can haul four people in, and you have a full a rear cargo space in. So
Right.
it's
And
yeah,
if I were to see it on the road tomorrow, I don't think it would really look that out of place. It would be like, "Wow, that's the new Audi."
yeah.
But I think we're so used to seeing concepts with just some really radical ideas. Granted, that interior with the glasses is fairly radical, but on the
That's
outside, I mean,
yeah.
this car looks, I mean, it looks ready to go, and it's got aggressive ground clearance.
Mhm.
I could see this being particularly useful off road, but it still has that kind of just swoopy coupe look to it. Yeah, this is a good one, Audi.
But so real quick, and again, if you're watching on YouTube, we're looking at an interior sketch now. You could imagine, and again, I'm not. Audi was clear that this is not a vehicle that
Right.
is immediately going into production or anything like that. But you could imagine an instrument panel between the spokes on the steering wheel. You could imagine an infotainment system. And other than
You're there.
that, like, there's not much in the interior that looks like, "Oh, this could never go into production. This is way too futuristic."
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
it
there.
yeah.
It feels really grounded. Really grounded.
So, yeah. Um, interesting. It's an interesting way to close out the sphere concepts and for anyone who doesn't realize, they did 4 sphere concepts. Audi has
Mhm.
4 rings in their, badge. That's why.
And it goes back to I think 2021 when the first one when
I
they
think it's
debuted the first sphere concept.
2022, right? Oh no, 21. You're right. Yep. The
2021. So
Sky
this has been,
Sphere was
yeah,
21. The Urban Sphere
Urban
and the
Sphere,
Grand Sphere were
the Grand
22,
Sphere.
and then this is 23. Yep, you're right.
Yeah. No, the very interesting ideas. Props to Audi for coming up with something like this, stretching over a couple years, linking them together.
Mhm.
I can't remember any other time where I've seen an automaker do that with a series of concepts, at least at this scale, with this number,
Yeah, I'm sure it exists, but off the top of my head,
right?
I can't think of one either.
I mean, concepts you usually think of as a one-off.
Right.
So very interesting take from Audi.
Yep.
You want to talk about another concept?
Sure. The one I don't like.
The, really?
I don't like this car at all.
I mean, okay. It's the Porsche Vision 357 concept.
It is.
Has with Audi. There's no intent on putting this into production. But here's where it gets interesting. It's based on a 718 Cayman GT4 RS.
Right. But
So
okay.
wink, wink,
Let me
nudge,
get
nudge.
angry real quick. Why would you make a concept inspired by the Porsche 356 and make it look not only nothing like a Porsche 356, but make it look like a 911 with a body kit?
No, see, I was gonna say it's not really like a 911 with a body kit.
It
I
is.
actually, I you might hate it even more after this. I guess, especially looking from the back, I get more VW Beetle vibes looking at it from the rear.
I
And
guess.
yeah, I mean from the side, we're
No,
certainly
I don't even
getting.
agree with that now that I look at it more. No, you're wrong.
I mean, from the side, we're getting. Well, I guess from the front 3/4, we're getting some 911 vibes. From the side, the way the roof and the glass angles down, I actually get GTR, like Nissan GTR vibes from that.
Oh, that's even worse.
I
You're
get
making
I
it
get
worse.
I get Volkswagen Beetle vibes from the back, but I think it's cool, man. I don't hate it. I think it's cool. Of
I
course,
know I'm in the minority because not only have most of our coworkers weighed in, but Steve Ewing, our former coworker, has weighed in, and other like automotive people on Twitter who I follow have weighed in. I know I'm in the minority here for not liking this vehicle, so like I can accept that. It's just not for me.
if we
This is
take out
bad
the
though to me.
356, if we take out the 356 connection, what do you think then? Because
Ooh,
I think that might be the key here, the
it
factor.
is.
Porsche, I mean, they call this the 357 concept. It's an homage to the 356. Of course, Porsche is celebrating the 75th anniversary. And this is just a concept to help celebrate that anniversary, an homage to the 356 while also pointing to future design directions with the company. But it is nothing but a concept car. There are no plans for production. But I do find it interesting that okay, it's based on the Cayman GT4 RS, and as such, it could have the naturally aspirated 4-liter, 493 horsepower engine if it were to be a production vehicle, which again, it's a concept. It is
Right.
not. That's I found that particularly interesting in the release and then our article that we had on it, written by our colleague Anthony Alanes. So it's almost like they're saying, no, this isn't a production vehicle.
Okay,
But then they're waiting to see what people say, right?
here is the funny thing. If you told me this was the new Porsche Cayman and it was going to take cues from the 911, I would be on board. It's just the fact that you're calling it the baby step from the 356 that I don't like. But if you said this is the 719 Cayman, and this is how absurd branding is, and how branding is a virus that gets into your mind and
Yep.
messes you up. But yeah, You made me rethink this car as we were talking about it, and yeah, if this is the new Cayman, I'm on board. If this is the new 356, you messed up. And I that is mental illness on my own part, not on anyone out there.
Well, congratulations, Bruce. Bruce, congratulations, Bruce. You just joined quite a few Mustang owners when they were like, Mustang Mach E?
Yeah, you're
This
right,
is cool if it's a Mach E, but as
right?
a Mustang, it's terrible. You're
Yeah.
right though. Branding makes a difference. If I were
Myth
to
is branding a
see
virus? It should is branding bad? Like,
it's
I
well, I mean, like anything, it can be used for the powers of good, or
or
it
the
can be
powers of
used for the
evil?
powers of evil.
But you're right.
Um,
Yeah, if you told me that this was a next gen Cayman and I change my mind around and I think about it like that, I'm like, "Oh, so it's a baby 911? I like the 911. I'm on board with that." Yeah, you're right. That's good. It's just the 356 connotation is just like it's something that has existed for so long and I look at like, "Oh no, that's not a 356 or,
yeah,
a
I mean,
357." But
I'm with
yeah,
you. If I were to look at this without any other context, I would never connect it with a 356.
no, absolutely not.
I would connect it more with 911.
Yes.
Which obviously Porsche models through the years, they all have some similarities in overall design. We'll just put it that way.
They do.
Um, but I think I find Porsche's phrasing on their connection with the 718 it just as interesting. Again, to clearly state, not a production vehicle,
No, it
no
is not.
plans for production.
No,
Um,
no.
it's got cool door handles that are hidden in the rear glass, so you
Yep.
can't see them. It's got a very smooth shape on the outside. The side mirrors are just little thin cameras. The lighting elements at the front and rear, looking at the photos, which you can do at Motor One Podcast on YouTube, or you can also go to motor1.com and read the article that we put up there. The lighting elements, front and rear, are actually kind of disguised behind body panels. If you take a close look, you can see them.
Oh, you can,
Um,
yeah.
well, I mean, when they come on, obviously you can see them, but the lighting elements, front and rear, are disguised like that. Um, and yeah, underneath, 718 came in GT4, so this car with 493 horsepower, it could be cool. It could be cool, but as Bruce has so eloquently said,
Not
it does
at
not make
all.
sense as a 356. You know
But,
what?
okay.
If they were to come out, if Porsche were to come out and say, "Hey, we're going to resurrect the 356 nameplate, and this is going to be
Which
it."
they did with the 718. The 718 RSK was a famous race car, and then they brought that back, and now that's what the Cayman and Boxster are called. So, they've done it before.
One thing that I don't understand about this car,
Yes.
the 356, it had that split windshield design, and
Yes.
this
Well,
concept, it's supposed to mirror that, just in the way the windscreen and then the side windows all kind of sees almost seamlessly blend together with the black pillars, and I'm not getting that at all from it. It
no.
has, I mean, it has just like this overall visor look, but I'm not really getting that connection either. Are you?
No, not really. But here's what I will say. 357 because of, 357 Magnum, like not the strongest revolver cartridge, but a very strong name. Like it sounds good. Like I got a 357. Like it's got a good name to it. So
Eh,
I do like that part.
okay, that's an interesting take.
It
Um,
you can disagree. You're allowed.
I I'm just I find the car interesting. I think it looks good. It doesn't bother me that there's a tie to a 356, though I don't really see any
It
tie to the 356.
exactly. It's
If it's
so
called
911.
if it's called 356, if it's called 357, if it's called 719, it's not really affecting me either way.
I agree.
But if it were to go into production, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I think it looks pretty cool.
No,
Again, concept, no plan whatsoever on this, or maybe even portions of it going into production. Done for Porsche's 75th anniversary. They do say, it kind of hints at some design future. But if you want to see it in person, it's at the exhibition at Volkswagen Group's Drive Forum on January 27th, and it runs until mid-February.
Cool. Well,
or you can just email podcast@motor1.com and say, Bruce, you're crazy, man. I don't see the hate. Let it be a new 356. Or you can say, Bruce, you're absolutely right. What is Porsche thinking?
I respect both of those responses because they're both totally accurate.
Absolutely. You can always comment on the YouTube video as well at Motor One Podcast on YouTube. You can always comment on our article that goes up every Friday at motor1.com that summarizes everything that we're talking about in this program.
So Smith, sorry, with that statement, are we skipping the BMW vehicle and doing emails right now, or do you still want to hit the BMW?
Oh, let's absolutely hit the BMW. I was just tossing it in there because I was rolling with it, man. I was rambling.
I'm sorry.
So spoiler alert, we're also going to talk about the BMW M3 CS.
We are?
That came out, but we're going to talk about that right now.
We are.
I actually had myself confused there for a minute. We're going to talk about the BMW M3 CS.
No, buddy, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you wanted to do emails first, and so I got confused. I apologize.
Well,
did you want to do emails first?
I got confused. It's like, no. We're going to do the emails later. We're going to talk about this, but spoiler alert, we're going to do the emails now and talk about this and that. Yeah, you know what? There's a new green BMW with a big ass grill and a lot of horsepower.
That's exactly true. Yeah. Every bit of that statement is true.
Let's talk about this a little bit. And I'm not going to harp on the grill. Everybody's harped on the grill. You either like it or you hate
and I have been doing it for years now.
We've been doing it for years. I think half of our subscribers are probably built on that, right? But here's the deal. The M3 CS. Here's what you need to know. It's got, of course, the twin turbo 6 S58, 543 horsepower. That's 10 less than the M4 CSL, but it's still 40 more than the M3 competition, right? So, 543 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque. You can only get this as an X-Drive all-wheel drive with the auto. You can select a rear-wheel drive only mode though, because BMW M, you gotta do the sideways smoky burnouts. So I mean, they have all of that in place, right? It's what you would expect with the CS. It's lighter. It's 75 pounds lighter. They fill it up with a bunch of carbon fiber reinforced plastic. You get that on the hood, the roof, the trunk lid, splitter, intakes. What else we got here? The rear diffuser. There are carbon front bucket seats. It still has the rear seats, so you can still use it as a stand. They don't get quite that hardcore on it.
Right. It's basically, to sum it up, it is an M4 CS, but occasionally maybe you have nieces, nephews, mother-in-law, father-in-law, something like that you need to put someone in the back seat occasionally. And that's
you can open up the rear door.
You can do that, yeah.
And you can say, please step into my limousine.
Oh, sure. Sure.
and let's go to Walmart sideways.
Exactly.
You can certainly do that. The sticker on this is going to be $118,700 plus $995 destination fees. It is a little pricey.
Yeah, almost 120 grand. That's a spicy meatball if there ever was one.
But I mean, M3 CS, if you are a performance sedan, a sports sedan enthusiast, I mean, maybe this warrants a little bit of discussion. Is BMW still the benchmark here? Or are people maybe looking at Mercedes at the AMG C class? Or is BMW still the benchmark in this segment?
I feel like, me personally, I feel like Mercedes is now the benchmark, but I would respect an argument going the other way. I still think it's close. I still think, they are on semi-equal footing, but it does feel like Mercedes to me is a baby step better.
Mhm.
And that's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have an opinion at this point.
Okay.
Just because it's been too long since I've been in a hot BMW.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think I've driven any BMW from the last 10 years. So it's I can't make any sort of judgment call just based on the looks, which I'm not a fan of BMW's current design direction. I'm a huge fan of Mercedes' current design direction. But
Same.
but just the way something looks doesn't dictate
Of course not.
how it's going to feel behind the wheel. So, oh, and speaking of which, I did leave out some details here. The M3 CS, it comes standard with a driver's package, so that gives you 188 mph top speed. Curiously, the carbon ceramic brakes, that's still an optional upgrade, which it's like,
Interesting.
it interesting. I don't know exactly what the cost is on that package. But you're gonna make your hardcore M3 CS and then you're not gonna give it the hardcore brakes. I'm wondering if BMW is thinking, well, I mean, people want the CS, but you're really only gonna use the brakes all the time. I mean, duh, that you're driving a car, you need to
Well,
use
but you
brakes.
don't use the brakes all the time. You only
Are,
use the
are
brakes. That's the thing. Like if you're taking on a track day, you would use the brakes a lot. But if
right.
you're
That's
taking it
that's
on
the point.
the interstate, you're not necessarily going to
Yeah,
use.
that's the point. I mean, if you want this car, but you're not really going to go track it all the time. I mean, even sometimes, it's one thing. But if you're going
Right.
to spend a lot of time in the do you need the extra brakes? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that could be why it's not included into the package.
Hmm.
Regardless, you do get the yellow lights like you get on the CSL, because race car. It's available. It's available in 4 colors. The signal green that we're looking at here, you can get it in black sapphire, Brooklyn gray, and frozen white.
So green is the color you get it in. Because if those are your choices, I feel like green is the answer.
Well, I mean, black, gray, or white are, well, yeah, they're boring.
Yeah,
Black might not.
exactly.
Black would be all right. I'm not a
Black
fan
could
of
be
white.
okay. You're right.
The only
But
problem with black, it's such a difficult color to keep looking good because it shows scuffs and just the lightest little swirls so easy. White is just boring. Gray to me has always just been boring. But I've never been a huge fan of green on a car either, unless it's like a darker forest green.
mhm.
The bright, the bright Hulk smash green on a car. It's just too much for me. The same goes with like a really bright yellow. Just
Okay,
too much.
that's fair.
Just too much. But this is coming to the United States. Production is supposed to start in March. And there you have the BMW M3 CS.
Absolutely. So, we so I will say this, rambling about cars, our general audience is in their 40s to 50s. We got an email, actually 2 emails from someone who is a bit younger than that, and we
Yes.
always want to build our audience. So, I want to read one of those. Smith, do you have the other emails up? If not, I can happily read all 3 this week.
Go
But yeah.
ahead. I don't have them pulled up, but I have my email open,
Oh,
so I can bring them up at will.
okay.
And
I
yes,
got them
let me
then.
just say, welcome to Rambling About Cars, fellow kids.
Exactly.
We
So,
are we are happy to hang with you today. Is that chill? Am I doing that right?
no, I think all of that is old school now.
Awesome. We are happy to have listeners from
Someone.
all demographics. Email
Exactly.
us podcast@motor1.com. Bruce, why don't you go ahead and jump into some of the emails here because we got some good ones.
Absolutely. So, Hey, Mr. Bruce and Mr. Smith, couldn't figure out how to say two people's names who start with Chris. Chris's, the Chris I. See the problem? Yeah,
If you've ever watched Office Space, you go have meeting with the Bobs.
exactly. But
People
Chris is
that
harder. The
w-
Chris's
you could say it easy. It's weird to write because it's like, where do you put the apostrophe? Do you put it here? Do you put it here? But hey, you can say it easy. And yes, in the automotive world, if you're having a meeting with the Chris's, you made it. I don't know where you made it, but you made it.
Exactly. All right. So let me read the bulk of this email.
Yep.
First, I know it's Thursday, which I know it makes this a late email. Sorry. I sent an email in response to one of the very first episodes of the podcast. Just wanted to let you know that I've still been listening to every podcast and enjoying them thoroughly. I thought it might be time to send another email. I just listened to the truck episode with Tom Malogny, and I found it very interesting. The Rivian R1T would be my pick. The performance combined with the clever engineering and great design make it a compelling vehicle in my interest. I found it very intriguing that Nactoy chose the Acura Integra as a vehicle of the year. I think it definitely deserves it, but I also know that there's been a lot of controversy. I like the design, and there's plenty of standard features, but I think the interior deserves to be more differentiated from the Honda Civic. But the Integra, as always, the Integra has always been a more posh version of the Civic, so it's not a big surprise. I personally would have picked the Rivian as truck of the year because it's a startup. I personally would have picked the Rivian for truck of the year because it's a startup and not only was able to develop and get their cars out to customers in record time, but actually a fantastic vehicle. The Kia EV6 deserves even more attention. Everyone raves about the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and I agree that the retro design is fantastic. The EV6 takes a comparatively more traditional approach that I love. I also prefer the interior of the EV6 over the Ioniq 5. I'm not a fan of the Ioniq's white bezels on the screen, and I can't believe people don't talk about the badgeless steering wheel. I think it's a terrible decision because it's what makes the interior look like one of those cars in every insurance commercial. But he's not necessarily wrong there.
I love that. You got to hide the badge.
Yeah,
because you can't connect Mayhem with a certain brand.
Exactly. But they both are by far the best on the market this side of the Porsche Taycan. Car shopping challenge.
Here we go. Everybody listen out there, Ramblers.
Car shopping challenge. I'm going to put that in exclamation points. I am currently looking for a first car. I wanted to see if the two of you could come up with something interesting. I live in northern Delaware. If you have time to take up the challenge, I am looking for something reliable that will last a few years. I would like it to be less than $20,000.
$20,000.
Yeah. This guy's rich. $20,000 and have less than 80,000 miles on it. It can be fun, interesting, weird, or boring. It's not the most interesting challenge I know, but I would like it to be meaningful to me. So yeah, if you were gonna buy someone's first car sub 20K, he's clearly an enthusiast if he's listening to us and looking at Motor One and stuff like that. I've got a car in mind, but I will let you go first.
Parker, you want to get a late 80s Jaguar XJS.
Oh, you're an asshole.
You can easily find those under 20 grand. The V12 sounds great. Reliability, it's probably going to be right where you left it every day.
Oh, it's definitely going to be there. Whether it'll move from that spot, it's a
Come on.
shoot.
That's the perfect first car.
Okay.
It's totally not the perfect first car. It's not the perfect second car. It's a perfect project car is what it
It
is.
is. It is. Yes, it is.
It's a perfect project car because then you can say, yeah, I've got a Jag in the garage.
Yeah.
It's always there.
It's
Always.
always there.
It's always there. Or here's another one. You could go out and get yourself a nice Chevrolet Corvair. The only
Oh,
problem, you have to buy at least 3.
which for what was his number? 8K, right? What? Sorry, I
You
gotta look.
you should be able to buy 3 Corvairs for probably under 10 grand. One of them is going to run at any given time.
Well, you're gonna have
And
to swap parts around, but yeah.
and if you don't believe me, when was the last time you went by somebody's house and saw just one Corvair? There might be one in the driveway, but there's always like another one sitting around back, or
Well,
there's
yeah, because
another
you
one.
need it for parts.
I'm being pretty silly. I do have a legitimate pick, but Bruce, I'll let you go first.
Okay. He said less than 20K and less than 80,000 miles. But if you want a fun car, but not like, a car that is going to kill you or something like that. My thought immediately, and Smith, maybe you'll tell me I'm wrong here, Veloster Turbo.
See, I don't know enough about those from a reliability standpoint. It would be a fun car. It's certainly within the price range there.
Right.
Being a first car, I also don't know what the insurance would be like on that. That's one thing
Oh,
that you
I have
always
no
need to
idea about
consider.
that. You're right.
What one thing you always need to consider, um, insurances in different places can
Yeah, I didn't
sometimes
think of that
be
at all.
absolutely bonkers, which makes it very, very tough to go find a really cool, fun car because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I can afford the payments, but now the insurance is 3 times the payments. It's ridiculous, you know?
Yeah, you're right. I
Um,
didn't think about that at all. Good
could
call.
could could be a good car. I'm a little torn on this one because I'm also biased. My first suggestion to anybody is usually, you know what? Go find yourself like a 2000 to 2006 or so Ford Taurus. They're boring. They're rental car blah, but they're also inexpensive. They're reliable and they are super super easy to maintain.
And
And
I'm gonna
they're cheap to maintain. Parts are everywhere. Parts are cheap. And if you get one with the Duratec in it, the Duratec V6, it's not bad performance wise. I mean, it's not going to set the world on
right.
fire. My other default there is always um, Toyota Camry, Honda Accord. You can actually find a fairly recent Honda Accord.
Yes.
Um, and in fact, when did they stop making the Accord 2-door?
Fairly recent. 2018 maybe?
Because I mean, I think a Honda Accord 2-door would fall under 20 grand,
Oh
and
god, yes.
those have kind of a sporty look to them.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's ever going to be like, ha ha ha, you drive a Honda Accord. They're reliable.
Yes.
There's certainly an enthusiast following behind them. You can get on to Facebook. Sorry, TikTok. Facebook is like the old generation. I don't use Facebook. You'll never see me on Facebook, right? I'm TikToking it all the way. You'll be able to find enthusiast groups anywhere. Civic is also a good choice there. You could probably find
So Smith, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me because I think my headphones just died. Okay, here. I'm going to make an adjustment
look at
on the
that.
fly here, but I do have something. So hold on one second. So everybody, I hope there were no technical issues on your part. There were some technical issues on our part, but I think it's all been fixed. So let's get back
That's
into
what happens. That's what
that's what
happens
happens.
when you bad talk Jaguar. You just
Exactly. You can't talk
perfectly
bad about
reliable.
Jaguars, otherwise there are technical problems.
Bruce, in that short gap that for our listeners was just a few seconds, but for us was a little bit longer.
It was.
It was a little bit longer. Any final recommendations for Parker on a first car?
I still like Veloster Turbo. Your idea for Taurus was really
thing.
good. I had a a body joke that I was going to say that the Taurus's back seat was certainly larger than a Veloster's, and so you can do with
No,
that with you will, Parker.
if you're gonna do that, you just go P78 Crown Vic police car because
That's
police
also
car.
exactly.
That's never not cool at some point.
Yes. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to be a bit bawdy, but other than that, but yeah, because of our technical issues, now I'm a bit gun shy here. So let's get the show on the road.
Yeah,
And
let's go over one more email here because
oh,
we got an email from Rui that we haven't heard from in quite a while. Thank you very much, Rui, for shooting us a message. Hi, for once I've been able to hear the podcast on a Friday. Woohoo! We all need to spend more time just relaxing and chilling on Friday.
sure do.
Favorite Aston Martin. This is in reference to last week's show where we asked people, what is your favorite Aston Martin? And the answer here, the original 2001 Vanquish. A very, very good answer. There's something about its stance, the muscular attitude of the wide rear, mixed with the elegance of the chrome trim that goes around the rear window. It's a handsome brute, like a wrestler in a tuxedo, but it works.
He's not
do you
wrong.
do you want looking for a job at motor1.com? That's pretty good description.
It is.
I kind of like that. The fact that it was one of the freshest cars available in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 probably also has a lot of influence in the way I look at it. I'm chuckling a little bit because I played the hell out of that game.
I think
exactly
all
what
of
you
our
mean.
staff did. I've had conversations with Motor One news editor Adrian Padnow with
Mhm.
about that game. So
Mhm.
yeah, we are familiar with that experience.
However, it's not the prettiest Aston. That would be the DB9, which is much more pure and elegant, but doesn't have the same strong character of the Vanquish. It's not the car that defined for me what Aston Martin is about, however. That would be the DB7. And it was not
that's the part
definitely,
I disagree with.
It was not definitely the first Aston that got my attention. That was the 1992 Virage Shooting Brake. Now we're getting somewhere.
Now, yeah.
I was 6 years old. I've just started to learn to read my native Portuguese, so the French written on the years.
I love that.
L'Automobile magazine. I'm not going to try to be French. Yearly catalog. Because I would just insult the French. I'll be straight up honest there. Yearly catalog was a complete mystery, but there it was on page 44, something that looked like a Renault 21 Nevada. Nevada was the 21 wagon's name, by the way. But with a supercar stance, I was mesmerized. Let's remember that back then, sport wagons weren't a thing. The Porsche developed Audi RS2 only appeared in 94. Very true. Very true. It would be quite some time before wagons would be cool and then kind of iconic. One final note to talk about the DB5. I haven't yet seen enough James Bond movies, let alone from the Connery era, to have that connection. And next to the roughly same era Mercedes 300 SL, Jag E-Type, and Lamborghini Miura, the DB5 just looks old-fashioned and boring. I'm sorry, don't want to offend anyone, but that's my take. As always, keep rambling. No offense taken anywhere. And if you want to talk about a Connery era Bond car that's not a DB5.
Oh, come on. I know where this is going.
You know where this is going?
The 2000 GT convertible.
It starts with
the
toy
only
and
one that
ends with
existed.
Oda. The 2000 GT that was just still utterly gorgeous, and they had to cut the roof off of that car because he couldn't fit into it with a roof.
Exactly. Allegedly, it's convertible because he was so tall that they couldn't make it a coupe. Allegedly, that's the reason.
Yep. You watched that. I'm trying to remember which one that was. I mean, obviously,
it's not for her eyes only.
No,
his eyes only.
Not Diamonds Are Forever.
It's not Diamonds Are Forever.
It's the late 60s.
Yeah, it's the last Connery Bond.
I'm not up on my on that era. But yeah, that'll be one that you want to check out.
Yep.
Friends, ramblers, thank you very much. There are some YouTube comments that we'll get to next week. I promise. Keep
We will.
commenting on Motor One's podcast, Motor One podcast on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Keep commenting there. Keep sending us the emails. We love, love, love to hear from you.
Totally.
Now that Bruce is working again.
Maybe it was you. Maybe it was you that failed. I don't know.
Well,
It was me
well,
that failed.
behind the
No.
scenes,
No.
behind the
I
scenes,
failed. It was me.
Hey, it was my microphone that I unplugged and plugged back in because I know tech support. Did you plug it in and did you unplug it for 30 seconds? Well, no, I unplugged it for about 10, but it still worked. Anyways, we have 2 more cars to talk about. So
That's right.
And they are pickup trucks, and
They
this
are.
time they are actual pickup trucks,
That's right.
and they're not concepts.
No. So, for all of our Brazilian or Portuguese listeners, which I know that from looking at our YouTube analytics, I can count on one hand. So please,
But we love you.
we totally love you, but just understand, I'm about to mispronounce this. This is from Brazil's Ministério do Desenvolvimento, Indústria, Comércio e Serviço, Instituto Nacional da Propriedade Industrial, basically their version of where you would file a design patent.
Right.
And this came from our colleagues at Motor One Brazil. We do have an edition in Brazil, and they frequently get things like this, and they report them about that in their region. But this is an interesting example where we are fairly certain that this is also going to apply to the United States.
What is
and
it?
We think
What is it?
This is the new Toyota Tacoma.
Toyota Tacoma, the new taco.
Yep.
Leaked.
It's
not
not a leak. It's
not leaked. Just published maybe before Toyota was, before they have any sort of official debut. Right. We see this happen sometimes.
We do.
From China's Ministry of Information Technology.
Yep.
Where automakers are required to submit this information. That information is then publicly available, so it's not an official reveal. But as far as we can tell, this should be the Toyota, the new Tacoma in South America, at least. We don't know
exactly
if this will be what's coming to America.
Exactly, and that is very important to point out that. Yes. This is the registration for that market. We don't know what could potentially change for North America, for the United States, but I would say the bones of this design is probably what we would expect to get here. I think I don't think I'm stepping on any toes by saying that. And we end up with a design that looks like a shrunken version of the current Toyota Tundra. Especially at the front end. The front end has a lot of Tundra cues. So yeah, it's an interesting vehicle, and I love the fact that motor1.com is a global website, and we have editions all over the world, and sometimes they stumble upon this stuff, and the advantage of being global is that we all share stuff around. So sometimes whether it's Europe, like you were saying, that China, which we don't have an edition there, but we have people who are looking at stuff there, or Brazil, we can kind of get a good idea of what's going on. And so that's what we are seeing here. And we have seen spy shots of the new Tundra and the new Tacoma. And the thing is that it matches up with what we are seeing here really closely, which is another reason why we think this is the Tacoma, that it's not just these images, it's spy shots of one in the real world that we can kind of combine together, and you end up with this. So yeah, really important vehicle that sells, one of the best-selling vehicles in the United States last year, and has been, I assume, for a while. I know since I've been covering the industry, the Tacoma has been among the best-selling vehicles. So, yeah.
And Bruce, do we have any idea when a possible reveal might take place. Since we're talking about patent designs and sort of the spy world here, of automotive spy photos, nothing is ever certain.
Right.
Do we have any idea when it might arrive? Because we've seen prototypes in camouflage for quite a while.
Correct. So the expectation is that this is a 2024 model year vehicle. If that's true, then that means it would have to come out either between the second half of 2023 or the first half of 2024. Generally, we would expect vehicles to debut a couple of months before then because, automakers, they want to build hype for a vehicle before it actually goes on sale at dealers. So conceivably, if all of that is accurate, we could see this before the first half of this year. Like, we're borderline in February now. We could see this before June. That's not out of the question at all.
Well, I tell you what, I can't wait to see if the version that we are seeing here for South America is close or right on to what's coming in North America. So
Yep.
Guess what, Ramblers? You can stay tuned to motorrun.com and find out because we are on this.
Yep. And I want to point out the rumor is that there will be two powertrains available. There will be a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. That would be the base engine. And if you are a Toyota fan, you would know that the current generation of the Toyota Highlander comes with a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. In the Highlander, that powertrain makes 265 horsepower, 309 pound-feet of torque. That's kind of plenty in a mid-sized truck like this. The other option, allegedly, again, would be a hybrid assisted turbocharged 2.4 liter 4-cylinder, and that is currently available in the Lexus RX 500H and the Toyota Crown. And those two models, they have slightly different outputs. In the Lexus, it makes 366 horsepower. In the Toyota Crown, it makes 340 horsepower. So we don't know specifically which output version. We don't actually know whether it's going to get that engine. That's just a rumor. But that's the kind of output you would expect if it gets that engine.
Very good, very interesting. And I'm trying to think of a neat segue, but this sort of segues itself because the other truck we're going to talk about is another one that's, well, it's spy photos.
Yep.
It's generally based in South America.
Yep. It's midsize.
And it's mid-sized. And it's been of considerable interest in, I think, for those of us in the United States, because we have the Ford Maverick now.
We do.
We recently reported that GM might be considering a smaller truck in that segment, possibly an EV. You can go to motorone.com and find that. We have spy photos now of what some sources are calling the Ram 1200.
Correct. It kind of looks like a Lego truck in these spy photos because
it's very much a Lego truck
in so much cladding. Like
it is covered
it's
head
just an
to
absurd
foot.
amount of cladding.
And I mean it's made to look like an SUV.
Kind of, yeah.
But apparently there is a pickup bed back there. Let me give you a little bit of background on this. Obviously, Ram doesn't have a small or even a mid-sized truck anymore. For the longest time, they had the Dakota. Back when it was all under Dodge still. You have the Dodge Dakota. Of course, now we have the Ford Ranger that's back. There's the Chevy Colorado GMC Canyon. On the smaller side, there's the Ford Maverick, the Hyundai Santa Cruz. So let's
not forget the Tacoma, the Nissan Frontier.
Yep, the Tacoma Frontier. So I mean, there are a fair number of trucks in that market right now. And for a while, there's been discussion, okay, is Ram going to re-enter this market? Being under the Stellantis umbrella here, you have the Ram 700, you have the Ram 1000. Those are vehicles that are offered in other markets based on the Fiat Strada. I think there's another one that's based on the Toro, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
And
Strada and the Toro are two that I've heard. Yeah, I've heard
right.
about.
So I mean, to just cut to the chase, I mean, these spy photos just came up recently, but it's very interesting because there's renewed speculation that, okay, is this going to be something offered in the US? And once again, we turn to our colleagues at Motor One Brazil, who say they have it on good authority. One of the engines Ram will offer is going to be a turbocharged 2.2 liter diesel, around 200 horsepower, and a gasoline 4-cylinder engineered to run on ethanol. Whether any
Which makes
of that
sense for the Brazilian market, because
right.
ethanol is huge there, because they have a very large sugar cane industry there, and then from sugar cane you can create ethanol, and
Yep. Whether any of that makes it to the United States, whether this truck at all makes it to the United States, totally unknown at this point. But the timing was interesting because we are seeing so many vehicles in this segment now. One way or another, there is an updated, smaller Ram for other markets in the works being tested. It's believed this is going to be strictly a 4-wheel drive vehicle, not something with front-wheel drive like we see in some markets overseas. A premiere is expected to happen later this year. But again, the big question on our side is, will Ram bring something like this to the United States? And when you look under the camouflage, I mean, there's even some question. There are some very distinct round headlights that you can see through the camouflage, which has some people wondering, well, maybe this could be some type of Jeep model, since round headlights are kind of a thing, especially on like the Gladiator. Whether this could be some kind of Jeep vehicle. It's also possible in the spy photo world, you have quite often automakers with camouflage prototypes running different headlights or taillights than you would see from production.
right.
Just as a way to kind of throw you off a little bit. So that could be the case here. But yeah, we have this truck. We wanted to talk about it just because the segment is picking up. Now would be a good time for Ram to jump back in. The timing is pretty interesting to see this camouflage vehicle. And honestly, it's been doing a lot of traffic on motor1.com. So we know a lot of people out there are looking at this, interested in it. We wanted to make sure we brought it to the Ramblers as well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, my take is Ram should have been in this group a long time ago. Ram held out. Ram sort of defined this segment in the United States back in the Dodge days with the Dodge Dakota. Once upon a time, you had your full-size pickup trucks, your F-Series, your F-150. Back then, it was your Chevrolet CK models. Silverado was a trim level. Of course, you had the full-size Ram, but then you also had the Ford Ranger, which in that era was a very small truck. You had the Chevrolet S10, which was a very small truck. And the Dodge said, well, hey, we'll do something in between. We'll offer the Dodge Dakota. And that was the only truck in its segment for the longest time. And it was pretty successful. And then it seemed like just as Chevrolet and GMC came back with a Colorado, a Canyon, a little bit bigger than the S10 that came before it, Dodge kind of stepped away from the market. So if they're going to come back as a Ram, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, we talked about, Ford is kind of the interesting example of having that, that small, medium, large, and then extra large, if you want to get into the Super Duty models market, that it's interesting that we haven't seen a similar truck from GM. We haven't seen a similar truck from Stellantis, that we call them now. So yeah, I'm surprised that we haven't seen them flood that market, especially since by all accounts, the Maverick and the Ranger have both been successes in their modern guises. So yeah, you look at these spy shots and they're super heavily camouflaged. Like, you kind of can't draw big conclusions from them, but they do tell you, okay, there's something underneath there. There's something that these automakers are working on, because vehicles don't get to this stage unless they're eventually going to reach production. We don't, the automakers don't send them to the Arctic unless they're working on something that we are eventually going to see. And we don't know exactly what we're going to see here, but it's still intriguing that, a new midsize or even compact truck from the Stellantis brand is on the way.
And it's a little difficult for us to talk about just because, one, the camouflage on this one is just like extreme. This is probably one of the heaviest camouflaged test vehicles I have ever seen. It's like, I mean, usually you see tarps that can be kind of flopping in the wind a little bit. Maybe you can kind of get a peek behind the tarps, or just like the swirl camouflage wrap. This, if you're not available on Motor One Podcast on YouTube, it's like somebody cut up a bunch of cardboard boxes, taped them together, and then taped them to the truck. I mean, it is slab sided, slab roofed. So it makes it a little tough to talk about. And we have no confirmed information, obviously. We get spy photos like this. I mean, from time to time, we've dialed up automakers and said, hey, we got these spy images. Why don't you tell us all about it? And they're like, we have nothing to say. No comment.
Yeah, go pound sand.
So it's not like we can call up and say, hey, are you building this vehicle? So it's very tough. The information is always speculative. But as we said, the timing right now is pretty good to have something like this come back to the North American market. We'll see. Maybe we'll see later on this year. What do you think? Podcastermotor1.com. That's what I think you should do. You should email us. Tell us what you think. Comment on our article that goes up every Friday at Motor One. Comment over at Motor One Podcast on YouTube. Also, like, follow, and subscribe. We are growing slowly. We want to grow faster. We're picking up some steam. And we will come up. I guarantee we will come up with some crazy subscriber challenge for 1,000.
Oh, God, yes.
And we're just about halfway there.
I would love to do something like that.
We are just about halfway there. We have all kinds of things we can do. We're going to have some discussions here internally about what we can do to make your lives so much better, Ramblers, for listening to Rambling About Cars.
And while we are promoting the show, next week I'm going to say we will have a guest on. He has confirmed. I am not going to say the name of this guest because we've had people drop out before, and so I don't want to. I don't want to overpromise to you folks and then underdeliver just in case life happens. But tentatively, we will have a guest next week, and I'm really looking forward to that because this person has he has been on the road across America, and I know he has some interesting stories that I only know like the one sentence version of, and I can't wait to hear the full version of. So
here's a little teaser. If you've ever thought about van life or RV life, this is going to be the van life RV life episode.
And maybe possibly I'm not going to say the flaws, the challenges of
the ups
living
and the
van life. The ups and the downs. Exactly.
So definitely want to tune in for that one.
So that'll be next week. But this was a fun one. I'm hoping you didn't notice our technical issues. I love our editor, and I think he's a superhero. And
I lost you, Bruce. Are you still talking? I lost you. I'm kidding. I hear you just fine.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm so glad I live like 6 hours away from you. Because now you're going to have to drive 6 hours to kick my ass. And it's totally
I would never do that. Anyway, okay. That's the show for tonight. Good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We love you all. We love that you're listening. And I hope you heard all of this. But that will be tonight's episode. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.